553, and it goes into effect October 1st of this year. And so welcome all. We'll have a brief presentation and then we'll have a question and answer period. And this is all coming out of House Bill 1059, which last year when we were all under COVID, House Bill 1059 passed, and a lot of us didn't notice it until it was fully passed and ready to go into effect this October. And so there's a series of things on this House bill, and one of them says that you must have a list of all the required attachments and drawings and other requirements for each application on your website. So on our website, we are working on this. This part's currently under construction, and so required by permit type will be coming soon to theaters near you, and you'll be able to click on this, and there will even be links to forms that you'll fill in and check off as you go completing the section. And so as you fill in all of the requirements for each different permit type, depending on the type of permit you're applying for, obviously, or the type of documents. And so this was something that we did have an overall for the building department, but now we've actually reached out to all of the departments that are on the permit. So if Public Works has a review, you'll get a list of what Public Works needs to see. You'll have a list of what planning needs to see, and there may be some links to other departments. And for obviously for anything that's over $250,000 in valuation, that would need to also be seen by the parking department. So all of those requirements are either in the general place or per permit type so that you can follow along. Then another thing that the House bill asks for is that applications, issuance, and inspections be something that you can request online. And we've had that been available. So through our CSS, you can go in, you can put a permit type, and you can request inspections through there. You can look up your reviews, you can pay fees. So there's a series of things that are available already through our CSS on permits. So this says you must be able to, you must post and update the status of every permit application on the website until the issuance of a building permit. And sure enough, you can go to the website and check on the status of a permit. So that's also information that we already have available that's part of what there is being required. That permit application, issuance, and inspection be able to be done. And so if you read the complete application, including payments, attachments, that you're able to do all of that electronically or, with the building department. And we've had that available electronically through the building department now for a while. It's gotten much more organized on our CSS site. And especially last summer with our upgrades to the electronic plan review, this moved even a step forward where some of the things are auto invoiced, and should be an easier process. So that we also comply with the state for that. And another requirement that the state has having to do with inspections. And so we also have in-person appointments that are available in our North Beach office. So you can schedule appointments through our website. You are able to look at information, see the drawings, look at the parts, and all of that is available through our website. You can also schedule appointments if you need to do any in-person plans that you'll be bringing in through our North Beach office. And so this really does allow you to be able to do this. What we're doing is on our North Beach office, we're limiting it to plans of 5 pages or less. And so, and it'll have an additional wait time because of the vendor. So we've been working with the vendor to see about pickup, but in these COVID times, he's does not want to be here on a daily basis if we don't have enough volume of plans for him to pick up. So we're working with him to see if we can get the plans picked up, ideally twice a week, but perhaps we'll only have them picked up once a week. And so that may end up, adding a lot of extra time to permits, but it does give someone who does not have the the ability and the knowledge of using the digital system to still bring in something for permitting without forcing them to go digital if they're not really ready for it. And so another thing is that we must provide our procedures for processing, for review, for submitting building permits, and that must be available on our website. And so hopefully a lot of you have visited our website, and what you're seeing here as these screenshots are not anything that's shocking to anyone. So if you notice, we have our quality policy, and under our quality policy here, it talks about our standard operating procedures, our SOPs, and you can actually click, and it's a searchable document where you can search for, depending on what you want to do, and there's what the rules are for the background for submittal for private providers, what the rules are as far as the different documents and the different information that you would need for extending permits, for permit cancellation. All of that information is actually on our quality policy, underneath our quality policy in our standard operating procedures manual, which is available online. And we also have our online permitting resource center, which has both written guides and video guides, and we will be updating these. I know some people have talked about us updating these, and we will be updating these, but quite frankly, we're, working to get everything as quickly to you as possible. And so we'll be updating some of our guides with different tips that customers have given us. Realize that the staff that puts all of our website and all of our information together is building staff that are not contractors and or engineers and architects. So we try to get the layperson's voice in here as much as possible. But there are also people that have been working with the building department a long time, so they've gotten used to our lingo. So we're working to make it as user-friendly as we possibly can for everyone. And in there is also how to apply for permit, and underneath here with the application, and you see the little plus, when you click on the plus, that will open up that list and give you different application types, different forms that you may need for application, different forms you may need for plan review, for permit issuance, inspection. So by clicking on the plus sign, you open it up and you find out, you find the actual forms and the different information that you might need. And so that's always, I think, helpful to everyone when you're trying to do permitting. And here we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the House bill. If everyone's ready for this, unless, Natasha, there's something that you want to discuss that I kind of zipped through previously.
Maybe just like last time, the first slide, just to reiterate, and just kind of to expand upon how this list here is also going to help permit intake, our permit intake staff. So when you click on this plus sign, once it's ready and complete, that little plus sign there, it'll give you a list of all of our permits, and there's about 180 permit types we have. And so within that list, you'll have a checklist of all the required documents that are needed in order to deem your submission a complete application. And so until you have uploaded everything as listed on that checklist, your application won't be deemed complete. And so that's the same list that our permit intake staff is going to be using in order to make sure that you've submitted everything that's required, and which will then allow them to open the plan review. And so it'll be a helpful list for both our permit intake staff and for the applicant to both be on the same page as to what needs to be submitted to make the application complete. Thank you.
Thanks. I knew there was something I had forgotten, and that will be critical, because if you look at this, a building permit for a single family residential dwelling must be issued within 30 working days after receiving the permit of application. Therefore, unless unusual circumstances require a longer timeline for process, or unless the permit application fails to satisfy the Florida Building Code or the enforcing agency's laws or ordinances. So that's like a big chunk there. But what it tells you is that the permit, if everything comes through and it comes through correctly, you will have a permit issued in less than 30 days. And how does this actually work? This is how it works. So the first thing is we are allowed as a department 30 business days. Once after receiving the completed permit application, we must complete our first review within 30 business days, or there is a reduction of building permit fees by 10% for each day that we fail to meet that deadline. Each 10% reduction is based on the original amount of the fees. So it's not like you get 10% off the 90%. So when you first start, you have 100%, you get 10%, you're at 90%. The next 10% gets you at 80%. It's a rounded 10% off that original 100% for the permit. And so that's important to know. So in 30 days, you will have, if your permit is 30 business days, you will get your comments back from all of the departments. And then the local enforcement agency, a local enforcement agency does not have to reduce the building permit fee if it provides written notice to the applicant by email or United States Postal Service within 30 business days after receiving the permit application. That specifically state why the permit was not approved. And so that's, your comments, and you have been receiving those via email already. So that part, we're already there. Now, please understand, you must give us a valid email. If you give us an invalid email or you don't type it in completely, and then you cannot say, well, I did not receive my notification. So you must give us a valid email in order for this to count. And so after 30 days, we must provide in writing by email the comments. And so we've been doing that already, and you've been getting this written notice. The new thing is the written notice must also state that the applicant has 10 business days after receiving the written notice to submit the revisions to correct the permit application. And that failure to correct the application within 10 business days will result in a denial of the application. So once we've put in all our comments and submitted them to you via email, you have 10 business days to respond to us. If you do not respond within 10 business days, your application is denied. And then you would be starting your process over again. And so it's important to understand this, that we have 30 days to complete all the reviews and give all the comments, and then you have 10 business days to complete the corrections and get the completed correction package in. If the package comes in on day 11, on day 10, it will, by the beginning of day 11, it'll automatically have a failure on a denial of the application, and the permit is denied. And in order to start, you would have to apply for permit again. And so I want people to understand this, because we didn't write these laws, but we're having to enforce them. And so if, however, you do meet your 10-day timeline, then you have the 10 days, then we now have another 10 business days after receiving this revision to approve or deny the building permit, unless the applicant agrees to a longer period in writing. So at the end of those second 10 days, you will know if the permit is approved or if the permit is denied. If the permit has not been approved when we've had our additional 10 business days to review, then the permit is denied, and then you must start the process over again. If, however, it takes us 11 days, then you will receive a reduction of 20% for the first business day that we failed to meet that 10-day timeline, and an additional 10% for each business day beyond then. So if you've done your part, if we get it in and we've done our review in less than 30 days and gotten the email to you, you now have 10 days to respond to all the comments. If you've responded to all the comments within 10 business days, and now the ball is in our court, we again have 10 business days to do the reviews. This is all the departments on the permit. So it's not just the building sections, it's building, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, flood, and roofing, but it will also include public works, the elevator section. It will include environmental, which is both the urban forestry and or the regular environmental review, and it will include the planning and the planning landscaping review. So all of those reviews would be coming in less than 10 business days. And if the first 30 days, we got our stuff in and you got it back in 10 days, and once we got it, it was complete and the permit is ready to be issued, you would get a permit at the end of that second review. But if for some reason you haven't responded to all of the comments, something is missing, something is still pending, then at that point, we will fail the review and you would start the process over. But you can opt into this program or you can opt out. And so by opting out, you don't get the price reductions, but you're also not held accountable to 10 business days or to a 2 strikes and you're out on the permitting. So those are things to keep in mind. If there's any reduction in the permit fees, that also reduces the state charges and the county charges that we calculate on permits. So everything would be reduced by the same amount. But if, however, you come in, we've seen it, the 30 days, you've complied with your 10 days, but it wasn't complete, then you would have to start your process over again, and you would again be paying upfront fees on your permit. There would not be a refund for this permit because you would have gotten 2 reviews and still not have received a permit, but you would be starting the process over again. And that's why the important thing, which is, oops, skip, why is it skipping? Oh, here we go. Opt in and opt out. Sorry, when I hit the slide, it seemed like it wasn't coming to this one for me. So the opt in and out, there's a mandate for this. And so we want to make sure that you understand that you have the option of opting in and opting out. And this is where this would happen. And I think, Natasha, this is a good time for you to talk a little bit about this.
Sure. So when you are applying for an application online, and also on the application that needs to be signed and notarized by the property owner, you'll have the requirements to check if you're opting in or opting out. So opting in means that opting in is the default. That means we're following the law. We're following the law and what the law says and the legislation says, and we're sticking to these shorter timelines, the 10 days for the applicant, 10 days for the city. If you choose to opt out, which is not participate, then we are both in agreement that we are not sticking to these shorter timelines, and this is per the legislation allows us to do this. If you're in agreement that we're not going to do the shorter timeline, doesn't mean that we're going to take forever. It doesn't mean that we're just going to leave your permit there sitting. We're still going to stick to our usual timelines that we have now, which is currently 21 days or less. And really on average, we turn around the reviews in about 5 days. So you're still getting that same service, that same timeline, but you're just not locked into the shorter timeline where you need to resubmit within 10 days. Does that make sense?
And this is kind of important for everyone to understand the difference between opting in. When you opt in, you are kind of gambling that we will either take longer and that you will get it right, and that you can make that 10 business day turnaround time. And so, but if you opt in and you miss the timeline, or you miss one of the plan review items, then after 2 cycles, your plans will have, and it's not failed, it's denied, and then you have to reapply. Your application is denied, and you have to start your application process again. And so this is why we've been doing these meetings. And we had a meeting last week, Friday morning, and this is why we picked a second meeting time in the afternoon, because we wanted to make sure that we would address this issue with people that were available earlier in the day and people that were available later in the day. We are also recording this meeting, and it will be available online once we've completed. And so I just wanted to make sure that you understand this process and that you are able to kind of fully digest this, to let you understand this is a state mandate. So this is happening statewide. This is not a City of Miami Beach plan. This is happening in all municipalities across the state. So this opt-in and opt-out option is something that actually was in the legislation that allows for it. And so it's not like we're finding some sneaky way to take longer on plans. It's quite frankly that we feel that this 2 strike and you're out thing puts a lot of onus on our customers also. So we've been working with all of the departments in permitting to get to that shorter timeline and to try to hit it and exceed it. And we feel that we can. If not, we'll take that financial hit if we can't meet it or exceed it. But at the same time, if you apply and you opt in and you don't hit your timelines, you will also be taking a hit in the wallet and starting your process over again. And so there will be another 20% upfront fee on your permit, and you'll be starting the plan review again. So one of the things I recommend for anyone who is opting in is that they make sure that once they've gotten a preliminary process number, that they go to the county and do the DERM process. They not just DERM process, sorry. They do the county process. So if it has to go to water and sewer, if it has to go to DERM, all of that process be done with the county once you've received your process number. And then when you come in ready to apply with all of your actual paperwork and your plans, you already have those pre-approvals. If you do not have those pre-approvals, there is pretty much no way you will meet those timelines. And so you would have to go, once you've got a process number, go to DERM, make sure that you also, if you need to, if there's any work being done near any trees that it might be removed, that you've pulled your tree removal permits before applying, that you've got all your ducks in a row. You do not want to come in confused about what it is that's required. And I think anyone who's been dealing with permitting in City of Miami Beach understands that the urban forestry review is critical, and they are looking at how are you protecting the trees that are on your site, and how will you be permitting to remove any trees that need to be removed. Because of this, we also recommend that if you're not sure, that you first go to urban forestry and look into your tree plan, so that when you come in for your permit, it is a slam dunk, slam dunk, slam dunk. And so we have all of that information for each permit type that will be available, and I'll go back to that slide.
And Anna, if I may, just to clarify, and just in case anybody missed it, the shorter timeline, the 10-day, is only for single-family residences. And so you can read the legislation in full yourself if you look up Florida Statutes section 553.79. And so that's for single-family residences, which has this requirement of the shorter timeline. 553.792 is for commercial projects. And that one also has a timeline, but it doesn't have a requirement for the applicants to submit within a certain number of days. So it does have a requirement of a permit being issued within 120 days, but the time that it's with the applicants is frozen. And so there is no onus on the applicant on that. So that's why we're not really covering that today.
Yeah, and we also have on that one, according to the state, it would be 45 days to review for completion. So quite frankly, we've been hitting that mark and exceeding it for a long time. So we don't feel, the one thing it does say is that it's a total of 120 days with the building department. So if, for example, it takes us, 20 days to do a plan review, to get all the departments in and get all your responses on something commercial. And it also has a size limit for that. But let's just not even worry about the size limit and say, okay, there's 20 days that normally we take for plan review, and this gives us 120 days on our side. If we're taking 20 days, you do the math and divide it, and that means that many times that we could have the plans come back and forth and rotate through the system before it would be considered exceeded. At that point, if we've had it for 120 days and haven't approved it, then it would be denied at that point if there's something still deficient on the plans. So that one is not as, I think, critical. There's not as much onus on the applicant as there is on these single family ones. And that's really why we're dwelling on this one or concentrating on this one to explain it as well as we can, hopefully as completely as we can. And then now if there's any questions, and please feel free to ask. The more questions you ask, the more information you'll get. If you don't ask questions, I'll start trying to ask Natasha, based on our memory of questions asked for last cycle. So are there any questions in the chat at this time, Natasha?
No, there's no questions in the chat. So you can type in a question or raise your hands and we'll call on you. Let me see if I can remember some of the ones from last time. We covered them now on this one. One of the questions I remember last time was if this was just City of Miami Beach or statewide. And we answered it's statewide. Some people asked last time, Anna, your opinion on which permit types you think would bode well with this requirements.
Oh yeah, and on that, what I did say was, I would think that it would be something that is a kind of a closed system where you've gotten to the point where the permit is approved first or second time through. Some of the, possibly a pool permit where the company is very organized about getting all their site work done for the tree removals or anything like that, possibly fences. I mean, remember that all of this can get complicated because of the need to look at protecting the trees and how to also protect the site for dust. So those are the kinds of questions. Other people asked us about, I think it had to do with the financial portion. And so we are still going to be collecting the upfront fee, and the discount will apply to all the departments on a permit. So if that permit has planning fees and we have missed a timeline, either the first or the second, when you get your 20% discount, you will get it in the building permit line item, and you will get it in the planning permit line item, and you will also get it in the public works permit plan item if they're on that plan. So it will really affect, for single family residents, it could affect if we don't make our marks, it could affect and give a discount on permits that would give you a hefty discount. At the same time, if you don't make your timeline of the 20 days because of the need the 10 business day turnaround on the response, it will really affect you in the sense that time-wise and money-wise, because you will have to then start your process over for permitting and start that timeline over again. And so, and also that 20% upfront fee will need to be paid for that permit again. So you will have applied for a permit that's denied, and you have to start your process over again.
Ricardo Bermudez has his hands up. Go ahead, Ricardo. Unmute yourself, please.
Thanks so much, everyone. Anna, thank you. Natasha, thank you. I have a quick question. Like you said, go and get all your approvals before we submit in for permitting, from the county especially. What happens if, as a result of the beach's review, we have to circle back to the county and get that reapproved or resubmitted or revised before the beach will approve? That will throw off the 10-day, 30-day window, correct?
Yes. So you would have to go, yeah, you'd have to go back to the county again and reach out to the county to see, will the county honor it? It's the same plans, it's the same this, it's the same whatever, and you'd have to resubmit to the county and start the process again with them. Because if not, as you know, we have the 30 days, but let's say we get our review done in the 21 days, which has been our cycle in the past, or 20 days, we've gotten you that email. You now have 10 days. If you submit it to Durham, and Durham, usually the county, the complete review and including the Durham core review for the county may take about 2.5 to 3 weeks. So if you submitted and we're ready for our turnaround, but you haven't gotten comments back from Durham, you're going to miss your 10-day window for sure. And so that's why I think the only way to do this successfully would be once you've applied and we're changing the name of the building online application. I forgot that because we realized that BOA is also the name of an application process that the planning department has while discussing this. And so because of this, it will now become the building
process initiation.
Process initiation. Thank you. I don't know why I can't.
BPI.
Yeah. So we had that email that was BPI. I think it was prophetic. We're going to always end up with a BPI. So it's building process initiation, and that will, so you'd apply for BPI. You then get a process number that's still not considered an application. It's only an initial status. Once you've uploaded your plans and paid your upfront fees, we will then review the documents you've provided. If you have provided the check, you'll have to provide that checklist that says, this is the type of permit I'm pulling, and these are the documents I've done, and you check off each document. Our clerk will then double check the documents to what files have been uploaded. That's why it's critical that you actually name your files something close to what's on there as being required, because if you start naming your files, and I've seen them with like these weird names, just a bunch of numbers because somebody scanned something in, or then when they choose, instead of choosing, oh, this is a structural plan, they then choose, and for some reason people choose affidavit because it's it's an A document, and they put everything and they label it all like that. These are things that will actually slow down you getting in for review. So the tighter you upload efficiently, you label your plans correctly, you get your checklist in, the clerk is then able to look at everything. They will at that time, so in the past, we've done the intake review and looking at the documents, and then later there's a review that actually looks at your application and looks at that. This will now happen at that front end. So if your contractor information is missing and isn't complete and you've opted in, you don't get to go forward until you can't do a dry run on this type of a permit. So you need to have all your ducks in a row in order to opt into this. Because at the end of this process, you should have a permit issued. And if you're suddenly bringing us contractor information at the 11th hour, you may not have your permit issued. So you need to have all of your format all of the information. When it's an LLC, provide all the backup documentation to the person signing for the LLC, because whatever you give us will make it easier for it to get processed in for review and approved. And so if you choose to, even if you're not opting in, if you give us those documents completely, it will make your review process smoother. I've seen a lot of times where there's a limited partnership on something, or some LLC, there's something, and the documents that are provided are not the correct legal documents. And then there's a series of back and forths. A lot of times on this, I end up getting dragged into it, and sometimes I end up having to drag legal into it for assistance, because quite frankly, I don't know all of the legal documents all of the time. So I always check with legal whenever there's one of these issues. And so it's important, if you're not sure, reach out to us. We have the appointment system, so you can always ask questions, and you can schedule an appointment with someone and ask them, hey, I need this, or you can email us and get it in writing from us. Oh no, you'll need this and this and this, so that you have something complete. Because the more complete your submittal is, the faster the timeline if you choose to opt in. Again, even if you don't choose to opt in, the more complete your submittal in is, the better chance you have of your plans being approved at intake, at least that portion where it's the owner's signature, the contractor's signature, the construction cost affidavit, those things. If you have that well provided, and if your contractor for some reason is workers' comp exempt, then the owner's form has to come in. All of that needs to come in together at intake, so that you don't slow your process down. Are there any other questions available?
Yep, we have a hand up from Keith Goodman. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. It was a two-part question, understanding the opt-in, opt-out a little bit better. So the first part of the question is, if you said currently, if someone, based upon current timelines, if someone opts out, you think it's, what's your best guess on how many days it would take to review that? And then I guess the second part of the question is, in terms of the order of submittals coming in, if you have an application that's opt-in versus opt-out, does that change the timing of when the department would start to review? Because obviously the opt-in are more time sensitive than the opt-out. So I know you quoted this sort of 21-day time frame for opt-out, but do you envision that changing when there's, time sensitive opt-in applications coming in and those need to get reviewed first?
They're actually not going to be labeled any differently. So it's going to be, it's a residential permit, so it'll still be a BR and a number. So the clerk doing that initial processing won't know if it's an opt-in or opt-out. The opt-in or opt-out will make a difference in the review timelines that are given the priority as they come in for review. So on the first cycle, yeah, go ahead.
If I can add, when we're on that 10-day cycle, we have already built in a cushion for that intake, like the gentleman's describing. So we'll build in 2 days, and so for them to check those, and the same for everybody, so they'll get it out, and in the review, open the plan review within 2 days. So then really our plan reviewers, we're giving them 7 days for their review, and then we're giving finalization 1 day at the end for the finalization part if it's ready. So we've built in all of those into our 10 days.
Yeah, so there will be, as far as plan review, there will be some slight priority given to the second cycle of review of an opt-in. But to the first cycle of review of an opt-in, as opposed to the first cycle of review of any plan, they're going to be identical. So since that second cycle is really the critical one, and so that one will get priority. But the way I'm looking at it, most of our plans, and Natasha mentioned it before, on average, the building reviews are done within, I think it's somewhere within 7 to 10 days right now. And planning, I think, is reviewing in about a 14-day timeline on a regular basis. And
Yeah,
so
more or less. I mean, our building trades are really like 5 days, and then
yeah, it depends
I
on which
yeah.
trade, on which day. So I always like to kind of buffer it a little because I don't like to hit a goal and then not be able to meet it. So I don't think you will see, could there be a slight increase across the building trades because they're trying to hit this opt-in timeline for the second cycle? There might be an extra day or maybe two on a plan review, but I don't see this like completely upsetting the apple cart because we've been doing this timeline on a pretty regular basis for as far as plan review throughout the the joy of the pandemic and prior to that. So I don't think it will. What I do think it's going to do, and that's why we're having this outreach, is I really do think it puts a huge onus on the customer to meet this 10-day return timeline and to get everything right the second time, because this is a two strikes and you're starting over again thing. And so that's why we felt it was necessary to explain this and explain exactly what you're opting in and opting out to, because once you opt in, you've opted in for this cycle. It may be that it fails in the first opt-in and you choose not to opt in the second time because you find that tension on your side to actually be detrimental and not beneficial. And so it may be that people choose not to do it. I would think that, I'm not a gambling person. So if it were me, I would not opt in initially. I would look at my plans, try to act like I had opted in and see if I could meet those timelines on your side of the table. And if I could meet those timelines consistently, then I would opt in. But if I could not meet those timelines on a consistent basis, I wouldn't opt in. And so the reason we're explaining this to everyone is because we've read through the rules with legal, we've read through the rules with everyone, we've looked at it from different ways, and I don't see when you read that second paragraph is failure to correct the application within 10 business days will result in denial of the application. That's pretty much clear. It's not giving you a whole lot of little choices on this, and that so we have to tell you in writing that you have 10 days because you're going to be held to those 10 days. And we have to, if not, put our money where our mouth is. And if we can't meet it in 10 days, we have to tell you that, we have to provide that information. If for some reason there's a plan that was opted in and it's a complicated plan that would require additional review timeline, that might be something where it says there, it must be in writing that the person agrees to the additional timeline. But that's the only thing it gives you. And then again, it says that when it fails, if not the next, there was a whole thing, and it's the denial of the application. So there's a couple places where it talks about denying the application. And so we want to make sure that everybody understands, because this whole little 10-day timeline, two strikes you're out kind of a thing is I think critical. And that's, I've read it, I've reread it, and I think the hardest portion of this will be the meeting for the applicants to meet the 10-day turnaround time especially on a lot of things where there's a lot of information that may have been left out. And so we tried to provide as complete a document as possible that shows, what requires that you show the protection of the site to make sure that your site is clean and secure so that you don't do damage to the neighboring properties, and that you've protected, because that's part of the environmental review. We've mentioned the portion of the trees and tree protection and the tree removal permits because of the urban forestry review. And because of the planning review, there's a link to the planning department has their own little checklist items that they've created. So we have a general information for planning, and also Public Works looked at it, where they look at drainage on properties, where they look at things. And so there's a lot of things on a permit that need to be looked at. If you feel very confident in your submittal, you may want to first, do a couple, and you're doing this on a regular basis, you may want to do a few trial runs before you jump into the opt-in. But again, those are personal choices. I am not a gambling person, but other people are. And so I think it's something to understand what you're risking, because you would be starting your process over, starting the review over, and paying the upfront fees again. And so that will be something that could be important to your project. It could slow down the timeline for something you're permitting. Are there any more questions?
There's not, but there was one last time that I thought might be helpful. Last time someone asked, is the use of private provider review allowed if you opt in?
So if you opt in with a private provider, you would have to have all of your private provider approvals upon submittal of the first document.
Okay. We have a hand now. Megan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understood something. The 2 strikes, was that in reference to, you basically had 2 rounds. So you submit, you get feedback, you make changes, you submit those updated plans. And then if there's anything else that the city would require to be changed, or if your changes don't meet their request, then it's denied? There's no possibility of a 3rd round?
No, not on the opt-in and opt-out.
Okay.
Not on the opt-in. So when you opt in, it's 2 rounds. That's the way it's written, because it's also gives that timeline of you will have a permit or your application denied in 30 days. So it really does put, that's why we're having this meeting, because it did really seem like a tight timeline. And for the private providers, if you're choosing to do a private provider review, you would need to come in with all your private provider documentation, including their approval on the plans when you opt in. So we can do it, but it has to come in already with the private provider stamp that they've reviewed and approved. And remember, they're reviewing and approving the building trade. So it's building, structural, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing reviews must be reviewed and approved fully, and then it will go through the cycle of being seen by environmental, and being seen by Public Works, and being seen by planning, and also being seen by our flood section. So those are the groups that will be looking at it, because there's no exception for private providers. That's only built into the Florida Building Code. It is not into any of the other local codes and ordinances.
Okay. I'm not familiar with the private provider part of the process, or that's.
But yeah, it's a 2 strike. I know it's kind of a lot. And that's why we're doing the meeting, because I want people to understand what opt-in means and what opt-out means. And we sat down with legal, we sat down with all of the departments on permitting. We've looked through the document repeatedly. And this is, our interpretation, and we put in requests to legal, and we received back information from them in agreement, on most things. And so this is after much legal coaching. This is our understanding of this law and its limitations that it puts, or the burden that it puts on both of us. I don't know how it's 100% beneficial to someone that's doing single family residence. I think maybe if you're doing some small stuff that you're very, very, very secure with, anything else, I think it really does put kind of a huge burden of requirement on your shoulders as well as ours.
Okay. And then did you say something that you could open a permit or start the permit process and opt out, and then at some point along the process opt in? Like, or
No.
is it you opt in or out before you start the process? Because I thought you said something about like try a few rounds with opting out and then.
Well, I meant try a few rounds on different permits. So like
different projects.
Different projects. And then once you're comfortable with it and you feel like your projects are tight, that's when you may want to opt in. So it's not, you can't switch back and forth. And sorry, I sometimes don't use all my words. But yes, I like to call permitting like a horse race. And once you've started on one horse, you're taking that same horse to the finish line. So you either opt in or opt out.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, because the opt-out only gives you 2 chances, really. If you opt in the first time and then you decide, you know what, this was very stressful, I don't want to opt in again, that's okay too. So you don't have to, if your project started as an opt-in project and it was not successful in the opt-in the first time, you do not have to continue in the opt-in process because you're restarting the project. But, you know,
okay.
That's not always a happy place to talk to people about, but it's something I want to make sure everyone understands.
Okay. And then I also want to confirm, so if we're submitting, multi-trade projects, so there's a master permit and sub-permits, for example, they would all need to abide by the same schedules, what I understood from what you said earlier. So I just wanted to confirm, at least from it, sometimes one area will get back to you with responses on a different day than another. And so I just want to understand how that works if you have master permit and sub permits submitted together, how that timeline and the clock works.
So usually you don't submit here master and sub permits together. Generally you get your master permit issued, and after your master permit is issued is when you can apply for sub permits. So if you're pulling a master permit for an addition to a house and the sub permits, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, those permits are issued after the master permit is issued and they can be applied for. And so those don't need drawings because the drawings are reviewed under the master permit. There are sub permits, for example, for windows where, again, you need your master permit in issued status, and then you can apply for your window permit, and that one does need documents. Could you choose to do your windows as an opt-in, even if you did your master as an opt-out? Yes, you could. There's nothing that says that the opt-in has to be across the board on everything. The sub permits that are sub mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, those used to be called, we used to call them over the counters. We still sometimes call them this, but even though they're not actually done over the counter, they're done online. But those permits, the only review on them is a permit intake review for completeness of documentation. So if the documents are provided completely, where the subcontractor signed where he's supposed to sign and the contractor signed where he's supposed to sign, and they provided whatever all their license information and their insurance information is updated, then those permits are issued once our counter reviews them for completeness. So those permits really normally are being issued now 2-3 days after getting them, because there's just a review for completeness and then an issuance at that point.
Or in a master permit, I guess if there's feedback on mechanical, electrical.
That'll all happen that's that timeline. So that's
the same, but I guess I'm familiar with, sometimes some of the feedback comes in at a different time than the other. Like it doesn't necessarily all come in the same day.
Well, they don't necessarily come in the same day, but at the end of the review, once the review closes, there's an email sent with all of the trades documents. If you're online and you look up in CSS, you can look up and see, mechanical's already approved, and you can go like clicking and seeing it, in real time. But as far as the information, you will get it. So that's when it says 10 days, it's 10 days for all of the reviews. Our
But
reviews
does the clock start on the day that the last of those? So like, let's say they trickle in over a 5-day period. When does the 10-day clock start?
No, they can't trickle in over a 5-day period. So
Okay.
So what I think,
all of your stuff has to come in on day 1. All of our stuff has to go out before day 10. So yes, they could trickle in where electrical reviews it on day 2, but mechanical doesn't get to it till day 3. That's okay. You will get an email notification at the close of that review process when everyone has completed their review. And we are all held to be under 10 days for all of the trades in the building department and all of the city departments that are on a building permit.
right, so the applicant's time clock does not start until all of the review cycle has closed completely. So all of the reviews have completed.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I don't see any other questions here. I'll give everyone maybe a couple minutes to see if any hands come up, or if you want to type in the chat box. Okay, I don't see anything, Anna.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to make sure that, because maybe I made that confusing. When the review is completed, where the last person that's completed their review in the building permit review cycle, that's when you will receive an email with all of the comments on them from every single reviewer. And some may have been earlier than others, but you will receive. That's when that 10-day to respond timeline starts. So once you've received that email and that email goes out, that's when that 10 days to reply is allowed, 10 business days to reply. So if mechanical reviewed on day 15 and plumbing didn't review till day 29, at day 29, when that review cycle closes and the email sent, that's when then your 10-day timeline to respond will begin. I hope that's clearer, unless I made it cloudier.
I think that makes sense. And Megan has one more question she asked in the chat box. So assuming you opted in, would it be possible to get an extension on the 10-day submission from the applicant if there's extensive feedback on the review and the applicant needs more time and communicates that within 10 days? No.
That's not in the law. And so that's why I say that the opting in and the opting out is kind of critical. So if we start having people email and request, no, stop this one, give me an extra 5 days, it's just that will actually upset the apple cart more than this whole law will, as far as keeping things smooth, because then we'd have to have a whole other group dealing with people that want extended timelines and someone who would evaluate if it's a reasonable request or not. So the onus is on, we both have to meet our timelines, and we both can't say, I need extra time.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, Anna.
Okay, well, thank you all for attending. Oops. Oh, there we go. I really do appreciate the active participation. I appreciate everyone asking questions, because the only way we get more information out there is when you ask us. Please make sure to see it, watch it, look for it on our website if you want to, if you're having trouble sleeping and you want to rewatch this. It will be on the website to help people out, to help them understand what is opting in and what is opting out. And again, we appreciate you coming in and listening to us while we try to explain the state law to you. And please note that this will be happening in all building departments, not just City of Miami Beach, starting October 1st. So make sure to be on the lookout for anything that's single family residence or anything actually where the residential code applies. So I think it's single family residence and townhouses that it applies to. And so look for it and make sure to make the decision of opting in and opting out effectively. With the commercial, the opting in and the opting out, the big difference is once we've seen the plans for over 120 days cumulative, those plans are then at that point disapproved. It's like, you're done. So at day 121, we have to either issue the permit or disapprove the plans if they haven't made all the corrections. And it only applies to projects up to a certain size on the commercial ones. So we'll keep you informed. Hopefully you're receiving our tip of the week and you're actually looking at our website and looking for how to inform yourself. We try to keep things as updated as possible. And so thanks again for participating and thank you all for coming. And have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.